I was a newly appointed night shift nurse at the hospital, a massive and imposing structure that had stood for generations. The hospital had a reputation for its excellent patient care, but there were whispers among the staff of strange occurrences during the night. On my first night, as I walked down the dimly lit corridors, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The building's ancient architecture seemed to exude a chilling aura, and the soft hum of the fluorescent lights only added to the eerie atmosphere. As I tended to my duties, I noticed odd shadows darting in the periphery of my vision. Each time I turned to investigate, they disappeared without a trace, leaving me feeling on edge. In the staff break room, I overheard two veteran nurses exchanging stories about a haunted wing on the fourth floor. They spoke of ghostly figures and strange noises that could be heard echoing through the empty hallways. Brushing off their tales as mere superstitions, I continued my rounds. But as the hours passed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes followed my every move. One patient in particular, Mrs. Thompson, occupied the room closest to the allegedly haunted wing. She was a frail, elderly woman who rarely spoke but seemed to communicate through her haunted, sunken eyes. I had a strange sense that she was aware of something beyond our understanding. During the night, Mrs. Thompson's vitals began to fluctuate wildly, and her eyes darted around the room in terror. It was as if she could see something that I couldn't. Desperate to comfort her, I held her hand and whispered soothing words, but the fear in her eyes only intensified. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a chilling gust of wind swept through the room. Mrs. Thompson's frail hand gripped mine with surprising strength, and she opened her mouth to speak, but only a garbled, inhuman sound escaped her lips. The temperature in the room dropped, and an ominous presence seemed to engulf us. I felt a surge of panic, my heart pounding in my chest as I looked around for an explanation. From the corner of the room, a faint figure materialized. Its form was translucent, a ghostly apparition that sent a wave of terror through me. Its hollow eyes fixed on Mrs. Thompson, and it reached out towards her, its fingers extending into unnatural lengths. Terror, stricken, I stumbled backward, struggling to comprehend the surreal scene before me. I wanted to flee, to escape the haunting presence, but I couldn't abandon Mrs. Thompson in her time of need. As the figure drew closer to Mrs. Thompson, I mustered all the courage I could and yelled, "Leave her alone! Show yourself!" To my astonishment, the figure turned its spectral gaze towards me. The temperature dropped even further, and the air seemed to thicken with an oppressive energy. I felt a wave of malevolence washing over me, as if the entity resented my intrusion. The figure emitted an ear-piercing wail, a haunting sound that seemed to penetrate my very soul. In that moment, I realized that this was no ordinary ghost but a malevolent force, fueled by anger and despair. Summoning my strength, I reached for the crucifix around my neck and held it aloft. "I command you to leave this place," I shouted with conviction, my voice shaking. The entity recoiled, its form flickering like a dying flame. It let out another chilling wail. But this time it began to fade, as if my faith and courage were forcing it to retreat. With a final, agonizing cry, the entity vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence that filled the room. Mrs. Thompson's vitals stabilized, and a sense of calm settled over the room. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the memory of that chilling encounter. I sought answers from the hospital staff, only to discover that many had experienced unexplained phenomena during their time at St. Mary's. The hospital's dark history came to light. Tales of a tragic fire that claimed the lives of several patients and staff, leaving behind a restless spirit that still haunted the corridors. As the weeks turned into months, I became known as the nurse who had faced the entity head-on. And though I was praised for my bravery, the experience had left its mark on me. From that night forward, I carried a sense of vigilance, knowing that even in a place of healing, darkness could linger. St. Mary's Hospital remained a place of compassion and care, but behind the walls, an unseen world of spirits and haunting energy persisted. I continued to work the night shift, determined to face the unknown with courage and faith. The hospital's haunted wing became my nightly routine, and I couldn't help but wonder if my encounter had changed something within me, a connection to the world beyond. As I tend to my duties, I often pause to remember Mrs. Thompson's haunted eyes and the malevolent entity that lurked in the shadows. The experience had opened my eyes to the unseen terrors that coexist with the living, a reminder that in the darkness, even within the safety of a hospital, we are never truly alone.